Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello learners, welcome to the final lecture in the course Integrated Marketing Communications. Today's lecture is titled Campaign Creation and Production. I am Dr. Bhavneet Bhatti, Assistant Professor, School of Communication Studies, Punjab University. Before we move ahead for today's lecture, let us do a quick recap of all that we learned in the previous lecture. Our lecture in Module 4, Lecture 1 gave us an overview of the planning process for an IMC campaign. We learned the concepts of situation analysis and market research. We furthered towards campaign creation and production in today's lecture. Lecture 2 in the 4th module. The lecture objectives for today's lecture are as follows. We are going to acquaint ourselves with the campaign creation process, and we are going to familiarize ourselves with the campaign production process. As you are familiar, in the previous lecture we learned that planning is a process of situation analysis and formulation of objectives. Now it is the time for implementation. If you will remember, implementation was spoken about in the previous lecture in a threefold manner. Let's now begin with today's lecture on campaign creation and production. The IMC creation and production process deals with the following components. After conducting the situation analysis and formulation of objectives, we need to follow the process of creative implementation, media implementation, and production implementation. Friends, our lecture today is going to give us an in-depth knowledge on what is creative implementation, how do you creatively implement the plans that you had strategized. Then we are going to work on how do you implement all the strategy that you had made during media planning. And finally, we will learn the basics of production for print, TV and new media. Let's begin with creative implementation. Creativity is the heart and soul of marketing communications. All that we do today in communicating with each other, we use some creative ideas to express ourselves in a better manner. For example, if you want to make a conversation with a friend, you would try that rather than a dull conversation, you present it in a certain manner. Similarly, when making marketing communications, creativity is the core of reaching out to your audiences. Creativity in IMC campaigns goes much beyond just advertising campaigns. It is going to be an active ingredient of all the ingredients of marketing communication. You cannot alone think of having a very creative ad campaign, but dull sales promotion and publicity strategies. The world today is going to be about creative components of the IMC mix. You need a very creative publicity strategy, a very creative sales promotion strategy, a very creative way to reach out to your audiences in every way. Therefore, creativity lies at the foundation of all IMC communications. Friends, there are a few terms we should be familiar with when learning about creative implementation of campaigns. The first word I want you to familiar with is creative briefs. Creative brief is actually a document that provides an outline of the creative task and the basics for creatives to develop their solutions. Creative theme and concept is a fundamental creative idea which needs to be conveyed. If you remember, in our lecture on agency structures, we understood that there are people in account management team who carry the client's idea to the agency and agency's representations to the client. We also understood that there is a creative brief which is given to the copywriters and art directors who then translate the ideas of the account planners into advertisement copies or IMC campaigns. So in the absence of a creative brief, the creative department will be at a loss of how to execute the plans. Therefore, creative briefs are a very important stepping stone in the creative implementation of all the planning. Further, the creative implementation involves creative ideation techniques. I am discussing with you here very briefly a few techniques that are used in the ideation process. The first one is juxtaposition. Friends, juxtaposition is a term used when you bring two different ideas together. When you try to put two ideas together which might be unrelated. In the case of advertising, we often find there is juxtaposition of ideas, or there could be juxtaposition of product image with a celebrity image, so as to say that the characteristics possessed by the celebrity are being juxtaposed with the product that he or she is advertising. So that's one common technique which is used to ideate. The another one is association. Association here means that you are able to associate certain words, phrases or terms with objects, people, places. For instance, I think of summer and I think of a cold drink. For instance, the perfect example here would be Thanda matlab Coca-Cola. The word Thanda is juxtaposed, associated together with Coca-Cola. So this is the way association is done by brands in advertising campaigns. The next technique is convergent and divergent thinking. Convergent is a logical way of thinking. It's a narrow-edged way of thinking. Divergent means, as the name suggests, an alternative, a more widespread perspective. Related to divergent thinking is the concept of lateral thinking as opposed to vertical thinking. Friends, lateral thinking is a technique which is used in ideation, in creative writing also, in advertising also. Lateral thinking means that you are challenging the existing practices. You are generating alternatives from what usually is accepted norm. Such challenging of assumptions, such challenging of the regular practice gives birth to new ideas. The next technique often followed in advertising agencies is brainstorming. This is a common term. Brainstorming means that when you are generating new ideas in groups, often in agencies, creative departments engage in brainstorming sessions where association, lateral thinking, all these techniques come together and new ideas are often generated in a group discussion. So creative implementation has this one part where ideation techniques are used and we can train ourselves in these ideation techniques. The next part of creative implementation is the visualization process. Visualization refers to a step-by-step process of how you think of an idea, you conceive a certain creative idea, and how you give it a final shape. The steps in visualization process are as follows. Number one, immersion. When you are immersing yourself in this huge data, this plethora of information. So information gathering and research is done on the basis of immersion point. Second is assimilation. You have gathered a lot of data. Now you need to assimilate it. You need to put it in perfect way. Next is incubation. After you have organized your research data, you live with that idea. You sleep with that idea. You let that idea grow in your mind and take shape. Often your subconscious starts working on the idea in this phase. Next is illumination. From that level of incubation, suddenly there is a birth of a new idea or a solution, or you can also call it as a bright light that comes from the incubation period. And eventually when you have thought of an idea, before implementing it in full swing, you need to test it or you need to verify it by sharing it with your peer groups, by often pre-testing certain campaigns. So this is the creative visualization process in the IMC campaigns development. Next, creative implementation deals with creative strategies. Creative strategies involve advertising appeals, concept of unique selling proposition, and brand image and positioning strategies. Advertising appeals lie at the heart of creative implementation. How do you think of selling something? you have ideas. Advertising appeals are those ideas which will eventually persuade your consumers or customers. Let me give you an example. For instance, if you think of selling a light bulb, you can sell it by saying that it saves your electricity bill. So that is going to be an economy appeal. That's a rational appeal because it appeals to your logic or your brain. There could be another way or emotional way of saying the same thing. You could say that bright light for the brighter moments in your house. This perhaps might not have a logic really, but it appeals to your emotions. If you try to analyze advertising campaigns or advertisements alone, you will see that either they are appealing to your logic or they are appealing to your emotion. This is the use of advertising appeals in campaign creation. Friends, the more we see advertisements, the more we are able to understand that there are a number of appeals used. Rational appeals include durability, efficiency, safety. Emotional appeals include love, fear, pride, so on. The next concept in creative strategies is the concept of USP or unique selling proposition. You often try to sell the USP of a product by creatively weaving an advertisement around it. And the third way is strategizing to position or to create a brand image. So these creative strategies are some of the prominent ones used in creative implementation of a IMC campaign. The next part of creative implementation is creative tactics. Creative tactics means that advertising copy elements and how they are used. Now you thought of using a rational appeal. That was your strategy. But what is the advertisement headline that you will use for this rational appeal? For instance, let us say that you thought of using an economy appeal. Your advertisement headline here could be, want to save some money in your electricity bill? That is a tactic, a questioning headline. So the different elements of an advertising copy act as tactics. And again, the concept of USP is a tactic often used in creative implementation. Next part of our campaign creation development process is media implementation. After you have creatively strategized your planning, after you have executed your plan, after you've created an ad copy, you have to then start implementing your media planning. Now, media play an integral role in the marketing communications process by acting as a vehicle between senders and receivers. Media are also important because media implementation is going to fulfill the decisions of media selection, scheduling, buying, and evaluation. That's why media implementation becomes an important step in campaign development. Media implementation is also important because overall marketing communication objectives are based upon which media decisions are going to be made. Media objectives are different from communication and sales objective. Media objectives are specifically focused on the media tasks and define the role of media in furthering the marketing communication objectives. For instance, my marketing objective would be to create awareness amongst youth. My media objective could be to use social media pages to create awareness of brand amongst youth. So I have specifically spoken about which media I'm going to use to fulfill a marketing objective. That's why the knowledge of marketing objectives vis-a-vis media objectives is important. Next, in media implementation, we need to understand the management of media, its analysis, planning, and implementation. All these need an understanding of the concepts of reach, frequency, and impact. As we have discussed in our lecture on media planning, reach is the percentage of people that you are able to reach out to from the given population. So when making an media implementation, it's important to have the knowledge of the concept of reach. Frequency refers to the number of times that your message is exposed to your audiences. And impact refers to the kind of effect that that exposure was able to generate. Along with reach, frequency and impact, you also need to have cost in mind. How much are you spending to reach out to your audiences? What is eventually your cost per person? All these concepts are extremely important when you are making the implementation of a media plan. Friends, the effectiveness of media implementation is measured after the end of the campaign. It is only after the campaign has run in the market, we then need to evaluate the number of media impressions, the readership, viewership and circulation. And these are the terms we need to be familiar with. Circulation actually refers to the number of copies a publication is circulated in the market. Readership, viewership or listenership, these are similar sounding words, but they differ from circulation in a way that you multiply the circulation of a publication with average number of readers per copy. Let me explain this to you with an example. The circulation of a newspaper is guided by the number of copies actually sold. But when a newspaper reaches your house, there might be 5 people who are reading that newspaper. So the readership is going to grow more than the circulation figure. That is why an amount of circulation readership figures become important in media implementation. The third phrase related here, especially with the coming of the new media and digital media, is traffic. Traffic can refer to the passers-by in poster management, and in terms of new media, it refers to the viewer's web page, per web page. So number of clicks, number of views, these are all part of counting your audiences who have been exposed to your media message. So media implementation does require a basic understanding of few of these terms in media implementation evaluation also. Friends, next move on to production implementation. After our creative implementation is done and ad copies are being prepared, after we have implemented our media planning and purchased media space and time, it's now time to understand how these advertisements are actually produced. The final stage in IMC campaign planning is production implementation, where you are giving that final shape to your advertisements. We are going to discuss in this lecture production process for both print and broadcast media. For print, it involves final shape to the ad copies on design softwares, on your new media platforms. And for broadcast, we are going to discuss the production of radio and TV ads. Let's begin with production implementation in the case of print media. First thing that we need is background information. When you are going to implement a creative idea, you need to then know that you are implementing it for what as a final product. Whether you are going to make a poster out of it, whether you are going to make an advertisement out of it, or whether you are going to make a brochure out of it. So print can have various channels, various media. We need to be clear about what is the final shape that our advertisement will take. Next is target audience and distribution. Who are you going to distribute this media to? What's going to be your mode of distribution? Another thing that you must know in production of print ads or print messages is the final size and surface. Whether this advertisement is going to be on a billboard, whether this advertisement is going to be on a front page of the newspaper, whether it is going to be on the center spread of a magazine, you need to know that what is going to be the dimensions on which your ad will appear. Then choice of paper. Choice of paper is on the basis of thickness, on the basis of its glossiness. We all understand newsprint and magazine papers are different. Different surfaces have give different production qualities. So you need to know which paper is your advertisement or your marketing message going to be reproduced upon. Budgeting and scheduling. We also need to know that our print job is going to reach out to people in how many exposures and what money will be spent for that. Choice of colors, fonts, layout, although all this is done during designing, but when you are giving final shape to your advertisement, these considerations are also reviewed. Finally, folding, trimming, binding and delivery. If you are making a booklet, if you are making a catalog, printing enough is not going to finish your job. You will have to bind it, you'll have to fold it, you'll have to trim it, you'll have to then deliver your print job. So these are the steps which are kept in mind during production implementation of print out of home media. Next is radio. Radio and TV can be seen in three phases: pre-production, production and post-production. Radio has three phases as follows. In the pre-production stage for radio advertisements or radio campaigns, the producer contracts with a recording studio, selects talent and prepares for a recording session. Talent here refers to the person whose voice is going to be used. Sometimes you might be making a radio jockey to announce your advertisement. At other times, you might hire a celebrity. For instance, there could be certain celebrities who are known for their deep baritone voice. Their voice becomes their own identity. So you sometimes hire talent for the kind of voice that they have. All this hiring of talent, booking of studios and other resources is done in the pre-production stage. In the production stage, your talent actually visits the studio and begins with the recording. While the talent is recording their sound, their voiceovers in the studio, the director and the sound engineer, they sit in the control room and they have an audio console where they are modulating and monitoring the sounds as per the needs. When this recording is done, we enter the post-production stage. In the post-production stage, different parts of this recording are cut and spliced together. Sound effects are added to it and a master tape is finally prepared, which is further delivered, which is further distributed to the media as per your schedule. The next part is television. Again, for television, the production phase can be divided into pre-production, production and post-production. In the pre-production stage, the producer must study the script. Friends, for all your TV advertisements, there is a script which is written in a two-column format. There is an audio format and there is a video format. Whatever are going to be the dialogues, the voiceover, the narration is written in one column, and the second column tells you frame by frame of what video will appear with that audio. Along with the script, TVCs also have storyboards. In the simplest word, a storyboard can be understood as a frame by frame reference guide for shooting a TVC. It tells you with each frame that what is going to be the camera angle, what is going to be the voiceover, how will that frame be shot. So in the pre-production stage, again the producer is going to study the script and storyboard. He is going to look at the talent. He must analyze which production technique will be best suited to execute this script. Therefore, there needs to be familiarity with the major production techniques. One is slice of life format, where there is portrayal of people and things in a lifelike manner like we see them in everyday. It's the simplest and most commonly used format for TVCs. The second way is use of animations. Animations means demonstration of inanimate objects to communicate simple things. You might have seen in several advertisements, cartoon characters are used, animated advertisements are used, sometimes for fun, sometimes to explain something in a better manner, sometimes to just cut the clutter. So a producer needs to decide during the pre-production stage what is going to be the technique used here. Then comes the production phase. The production is about shooting. You need to have sound, you need to have proper lighting, you need to have camera persons, and then is finally the action stage. If you are shooting within the studio, you need to have proper lighting arrangements. When you go outdoor, you need to have proper arrangements so that the shoot can be carried out in the outdoor atmosphere. So all the equipments, all the skilled personnel for the shooting, all these are fixed in the pre-production stage, and in the production stage they do the actual work. Talent or actors or models in the advertisements actually shoot it. Location is chosen and the pre-designed script and storyboards are then executed in the form of a shooting. Then comes the post-production stage. Here the film editor, the sound mixer, the director, they all sit together and they give a final shape to TVC. How is it done? There is external sound which is mixed or added to the shooting. Important parts are edited. Sometimes dubbing needs to be done. So all that is brought together and a final shape is given to the television commercial. Next is digital media. Digital media is actually a hybrid of the production process of both print or broadcast. That's why, because you either have static ads or you have print ads or you have video ads. So for web pages, it is akin to the print production process, and for video and multimedia ads, it is akin to the television production. One thing that we also need to remember is that digital media production involves interactivity these days. So a lot of production process of new media today deals in how to make interactivity or integration a part of your digital ads. Friends, that was all about the production process. And before we end this lecture, I am also discussing with you a case study of an award-winning campaign. You might have often seen this campaign in print or on television. The campaign I want to discuss with you today is the Incredible India campaign. Now, Incredible India campaign was first launched by the government of India to boost the tourism in our country in the year 2002. The firm Ogilvy and Mather was hired for the creative execution of this campaign. The impact of this campaign was huge. It not only won several international and national awards for its creative ad films, but according to the data released in 2006, India emerged as the fastest growing market in Asia Pacific in terms of tourist spending. So Incredible India campaign was one of the marketing campaigns where they made print advertisements, they made a whole website around it, they made TVCs around it, there was this concept theme, and if you still go and visit the Incredible India website, you will be able to see that how beautifully this marketing communication campaign was executed. It was given a final shape. I am sharing with you the parts of this campaign here. There were TVCs that were made. If you notice in the TVCs, you will see that in the Incredible India, the I for India is actually an exclamation mark. So this is creative implementation. We just learned about juxtaposition, association. So an exclamation mark here juxtaposed over the Indian word or I here is an explanation of, it is actually an expression of the excitement that a customer is being promised if he or she visits India. So I need you to focus on that exclamation mark and look at all the advertisements. There is coherence. Okay, even if you look at the print ads released by the Ministry of Tourism, if you look at the top left corner, you will see Atulya Bharat and Incredible India. The exclamation mark is continuing to come in all the campaigns that you see. So right from the first campaign till the campaign was carried on further, it was then translated into Attithi Devo campaign also. You must be all familiar with this famous Amir Khan campaign, Atulya Bharat and Incredible India. This campaign although came much later, but it continued the legacy of the Incredible India campaign and the Incredible India website. Here is the Incredible India website. So a marketing communications campaign designed in 2002, then moved on to the Atulya Bharat campaign. Today, there is an incredibleindia.org which talks about the entire tourism possibilities in the country. So this is one marketing communication campaign where you can look at the creative execution, you can look at the various media being used and series of advertisements available on the website or otherwise tell you how well connected the concept was and how it reached out to both international audiences for tourism. It even persuaded the national domestic audiences to visit the domestic tourist attractions. So that was the success of this marketing communication campaign. Friends, this brings us to the end of today's lecture. Let's do a quick recap of all that we learned today. We learned about IMC campaign creation and production, creative implementation, media implementation, and production implementation were the pointers discussed today. We also analyzed an integrated marketing communication campaign of Incredible India. Before I end the course, I am also taking a quick course summary of all that we have learned in the course so far. The course was developed keeping in mind 4 modules. The first module dealt with understanding the concept of IMC. The second module was all about learning the promotional element of integrated marketing communications. The third module was about the concept of advertising, the process of advertising. And the fourth module was about developing the integrated marketing communication campaigns. We learned how to plan right from situation analysis to creating objectives, creative implementation, and finally production of the IMC campaigns. We ended the course by discussing a very popular Incredible India marketing communication campaign. The references and readings for the course were as follows. This presentation also shows you the special references and readings used for the Incredible India case study. All the images used here are only for academic purpose. Friends, that brings me to the end of the lecture and end of the course on integrated marketing communication. I hope you learned something of value during this course, and I believe with the knowledge that you have gained in this course, you will be able to not only analyze campaigns, but you will also be in a position to actually design campaigns of your own. You can actually think of hypothetical products and try to create some campaigns around those hypothetical products, ideas, or services. With this, I come to an end of the course on integrated marketing communication. Thank you very much, friends.